All right, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Gamblecast. I'm your host, Richard Delaney, joined today by Dean Ryan, contributor for Gambling.com. Dean, how are you?
Superb, all good.
Good stuff. We're back today to cover some more horse racing, and we've got quite a special episode. Today, Dean is going to be helping us out. He's going to be our resident jargon buster for the day. Dean, how are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned you might ask me something I don't know, but I'm going to give it a good rattle.
So, the name of the game is, I've got 30 definitions here, or 31 actually at this stage. We got plenty here. So I've got 31 phrases from horse racing that I'm going to throw at Dean, and he's going to do his best to explain as quickly as possible what they are before we swiftly move on to the next. We're going to see how many he gets at the end. Okie doke. So I'm pretty much ready to go. Dean, you happy to get going?
I'm ready. I'm not on the clock though. I may say
you're not on the clock. I wanted to add some kind of dramatics and suspense there, but. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how you do. Okay, pen and paper at the ready, folks?
Ready.
So, the first one is act.
Act. Okay, act. This means whether you act on the ground or the track that you're about to run on. And when I say you, I mean the horse. So some horses will not act on soft ground, which means they won't run as fast as they can on soft ground. The horse doesn't like it, might have a dodgy knee action, doesn't quite work with soft ground, or they might not act on fast ground. Fast ground being the harder ground variety. So if you say a horse will act on a ground, it means it's suited by today's conditions. If you say a horse won't act, it means it's unlikely to run its best.
Brilliant. Next is going.
Going, that relates to acting on the ground, actually. So going is the conditions faced by that horse on today's ground. So the ground at a race course is obviously the turf or the surface that they're running on. If the going is fast, generally considered to be good to firm, quick ground. Or if the going is slow, can be considered to be soft or heavy or bottomless in places. So going refers to the conditions underfoot.
Okie dokes. Continuing on, Dean, for the newbies like me, what is next best?
Okay, this is tipster jargon. So if I am a tipster and I tell you let's say my nap of the day, I think most people would have heard of nap of the day, means my best bet of the day. It comes from nap hand, I think, from cards. So then next best would be, well, if you've missed my nap or my nap didn't win, my next best is the one that's coming after that.
Okay, very good. Doing very well so far. Dean, IWAC.
Yeah, IWAC.
IWAC.
Yeah, this again is like the third element of, say, tipster speak. So tipster says, my nap of the day is this, my next best is this, and then my IWAC, my in with a chance, is a horse that is probably bigger price than it should be and has a chance.
Okay. Doing very well so far. Dean, on the machine.
On the machine, okay, a phrase. Machine is used a lot. And if you ever get confused when someone says, what's the price of that horse? And they go, it's 6-1, but on the machine, it's 8.2. That means it's actually better price on the machine. The machine being the exchanges. So anything like Betfair, BetDAC, anything where you can fire up and bet against other people is referred to as a bet placed on the machine.
Gotcha. Okay. Horse doesn't stay.
Yeah, okay. This one means, well, you think about horse racing in terms of lots of different distances, 5 furlongs, 6 furlongs, a mile and a half, 2 miles when we get the jump racing and the Grand National 4 miles plus. If you say a horse doesn't stay, so if you were to say, Richard, I really like this horse, I think it's a really nice type, but I don't think he stays, it's referring to the fact that if he's running over 2 miles and I think he's a miler, I'll tell you, I don't think he stays. That means he's not going to get home.
Okay, very good. You haven't slipped up so far. We'll see how that goes. Number 7 is hold up horse.
Hold up horse. Yeah, well, horses are, they are creatures and they have their own kind of personalities and likings. Some horses like to pass horses. Some horses don't like to be passed. And some horses like to lead all the way or come from behind. So a hold up horse is a horse that seems to perform better when held up. Being held up means not racing at the front of the pack. So if there is 10 runners in a race and the horse generally performs better for being a hold-up horse, they'll run him in 6th or 7th or even last and look to come with a run at the end.
Gotcha. Okay. Next is at the post.
At the post, well, that's when the runners are down at the start for a certain race. So you'll see there's a few different elements to this. So it's pre-post time, could be any time before that race goes to post. Horses are going down, means they're making their way from the parade ring to the start of a race. And when they're at the post, they're ready to go. They're either getting into the stalls, which is going behind, which means they're going behind into the stalls. And in a jumps race, they're just at the post and about to line up.
Okay, cool. And this one I quite like the sound of. I don't know what it means. You're going to have to tell me. Flighty or free running? Okay,
well, again, we're talking about creatures and they have their own personalities. Some horses will do anything a jockey wants and are very relaxed and chilled out and just basically, they get pointed in a certain direction. And when the whip is pulled, they go a little bit quicker than they were going before. That's a very straightforward horse. But if you're talking about a flighty or a free running horse, a lot more work for a jockey to do. So these horses are generally more excitable. They might look like they're tiptoeing around them around when other horses are just casually strolling. And at the same time, during a race, if a horse runs flighty or is free running, it means they're using up too much petrol. I know they don't put petrol in a horse, but I think you know what I mean. They're doing too much before they're being asked to do too much, and that's very hard for a jockey then to control them.
Very good. Can I just say at this stage, I'm quite impressed because the way that I've listed these haven't necessarily been in order of context and of what they actually mean. So you're doing quite well jumping between them. So I'm quite impressed so far. But again, we're going to see if that continues.
Wow.
Number 10. Number 10 here I have is educational ride.
Okay, educational ride. Well, it's very important actually. And if you think about a horse's career, it's, on a flat it can be at least 2 or 3 seasons, sometimes longer. In a jumps horse, from anything from 3 to 11, they can be running for a long time. So it takes some education. They can't learn everything at home on the gallops or in stall tests or schooling over hurdles and jumps. Schooling, I should say, is just practicing. Just so everyone knows. So an educational ride, it's a polite way of saying perhaps not trying to win today. So you might say, oh, I saw that horse run the last day and I thought it got an educational ride, which means it will do a lot better next time.
I see.
Now, it could well have been intentional that it got an educational ride. A young horse needs education. That's fine. But at the same time, there is an element of handicapping here. For anyone who doesn't know what a handicapper is, that's the person who decides what weights horses carry in a handicap, and it's their actual job to watch racing and say, well, I think that horse should carry more weight or less weight next time it runs. So if you're going for a handicap mark, which is often followed on from the phrase of I thought I got an educational ride, you might go for a few educational rides to get a handicap mark that you can then exploit when you are going for the win.
Very good. Very well put. Okay, next is blanket finish.
Okay, well, this actually leads on from the handicapper as well. Job of a handicapper is to take 10 horses in a race. Let's say there are 10 runners, give them all allocated weights so they will finish in a line at the finish. If that ever happens, handicapper sits back, has a nice glass of wine and says, I'm brilliant at my job. He's managed to get the best horse and the worst horse to finish the race at the same time by giving them weight. So if you say horses are finished in a blanket, it means you can throw a blanket over them and you would cover them all. That's a blanket finish. It means a very tight finish.
Okay. Next up, number 12 is on the bridle.
Yeah, okay. So horses wear a bridle, which is how the jockey is able to control them and kind of do a bit of steering connected to the reins. If they're on the bridle, they're doing everything easily. They're under no extreme duress. They don't look to be out of their comfort zone. So if I was to say to you, I watched that race and that horse traveled up on the bridle behind the leader and then went past, that's what that means.
Okay.
Did everything very, very comfortably. Or he's won on the bridle. Means he hasn't even really had a race.
Okay. Level weights.
Yeah, level weights. So if you're talking about handicappers, as we just were, often they are not carrying the same weight as each other. That's the nature of a handicap. When they have to run off level weights, it's a different... let's think of the best way to put that. It's a different aspect to racing. So you might have 2 races that could feature the same horses. But if it was a handicap, the best horse would carry more than the worst. If you're talking about a listed race or a group race, they would run off level weights, meaning the best horse will win. In a handicap, The best horse doesn't always win. The best handicapped horse wins.
Okay, very good. Next up, number 14 is double carpet.
Yeah, a bit of tic-tac phrase going in here. Double carpet, 2 arms across the chest when we had tic-tac. So if you imagine me now, I'm just doing a double arm over my chest. Means 33 to 1, proper outside, a double carpet.
Okay. Number 15, box walker.
Yeah, some horses, again, as we were saying, I'll go back to it again, they are creatures of habit. They seem to do certain things differently. You will find general stereotypes, and a box walker is one that will not stand still in its box. And it tends to be a negative when associated with a horse. Doesn't mean they can't be very good, but it just means that one's a box walker. Doesn't stand still, a little bit fretty, maybe a bit flighty and free running like we talked about before.
Okay, very good. Okay, we're just moving past the halfway point now. Number 16 is blowout.
Blowout, I think this can probably apply across a number of sports, but you might say that a horse is completely blown out, or blew up is another way to put it. So it can mean the horse didn't run like it did and it was an absolute blowout. Bad news if you were a backer of that horse. Or if they blew up, sometimes a horse will come back from a long break of racing. So let's say they haven't raced for a year, and they'll look like they're on the bridle, something that we talked about before, or they're traveling very well in a race and then suddenly stop as if shot. Not shot, obviously, but just don't finish their race. And you could say they were a blowout or they blew up.
Okay, very good. Number 17 is bounce factor.
Yeah, this kind of runs actually on from blowout. You've done well with this one, because if you were a horse that blew up last time, or let's say you didn't blow up last time and won on your comeback, some people, and it's become a bit of a racing term, would attribute a bounce factor to the following performance. So let's say you haven't raced for a year, you're the horse, you haven't raced for a year, but you won. A lot of punters would be wary of backing this horse the next time out for fear of the bounce factor, which means that you actually don't put in the same performance next time because, well, let's take it like as a human being, you haven't run a marathon for a year, you go and run one and you manage to finish it, you're not going to fancy doing it next week. You might just remember that how much that hurt, how much that was, a shock to the system, and the bounce factor can apply. So gaps between races normally eliminate bounce factors.
Gotcha. Okay, number 18 is stuck into him after the last.
Yeah, nice phrase for a punter really to let's say two horses come to the last at the same position and one jumps and the jockey gets stuck into him after the last, the horse responds and wins the race. That's what they're talking about. So sometimes a horse needs a jockey to get stuck into him after the last. Remember, they're using cushioned air-foamed whips. I don't think we're talking about any cruelty issues here, but it means the jockey's got right into him to get him home.
Gotcha. Okay. Over the top.
Okay, so a horse can have quite a long season. At some point during that time, he might have just had enough. So if, let's say, a horse has performed really well in the first 7 or 8 races of the season, gets to the springtime, sun comes out, doesn't perform as well as they've expected to, and it might often be said that that horse has just gone over the top for the year.
Okay, dokes. Number 20, she's quite green.
Okay, follows on this one a little bit from Flighty and Running Free. A horse that maybe needs an educational ride is one that's quite green. So if a horse is green, doesn't know its job yet.
Okay.
So green being the phrase of inexperienced.
Gotcha. Okay, some more tic-tac here. Burlington Bertie.
One of my favourite ones, actually. It means 100 to 30, or as you might see it, 10/3 or 100/30 in your odds markets on fractional. So yeah, Burlington Bertie, 100 to 30.
I quite like that one. Number 22 is rag odds.
Yeah, so if you're a rag, you're an outsider. So if I was to give you the betting and said it was 6-4 the favourite, 2-1 the second favourite, 3-1, 5-1, 7-1, and out with the rag odds at 33-1, or Burlington Bertie are the rags.
Okay, very good. Conditional jockey.
Okay, a jockey that's not yet professional. And conditional meaning that they are taking a claim off their horse. So if a horse is down to carry, say, 12 stone and a conditional jockey is jocked up on it, you'll normally see something next to it to denote that they're either an amateur or conditional, and they will be taking off a weight. So there'll be a number in brackets after that jockey's name. And let's say for this example, it's 5, means they're taking 5 pounds off the horse. They don't physically take 5 pounds off the horse just carries 5 pounds less in weight.
Okay, very good. We're getting there now. Number 24 is hacked up.
Well, you're on a good thing if your horse is hacked up, means it won. Let's go back to some of the other phrases like on the bridle, or very easily anyway.
Okay. 25 is pacemaker.
Yeah, you'll see this a lot in flat racing more than jumps racing. So take one of the big stable battalions like a Coolmore. They might run 3 or 4 horses in the same race. The intention being for, say, 2 of them just to go out and make sure it's a very fast race because that suits their hold-up horse, for example.
Okay. I'm going to take a whack at the next one. Number 26 is a course specialist. I'm going to assume that that speaks for itself. Is that a horse that is a specialist at the track that it's racing on?
Absolutely is that. And you will find that there is absolute betting power in knowing this information, often shown by a C and a D next to the name of the horse in a normal race card. It will say CD, which means course winner and a distance winner. Sometimes you see C, which just means it's one at the course but not at that distance. Sometimes you see D, one at the distance but not at that course. If you can find a CD next to a horse, that should mean it's a course specialist, or at least there's one there once before. And some horses become absolute course specialists and win multiple races at one track and can't win anywhere else. Course specialist.
I see. Very good. 27 is cut in the ground.
Okay, well, we're going back to whether a horse might act on the ground or the going that the horse is facing on that day. Cut in the ground is just referring to there being a little bit of moisture in the ground, which means it means the horses can cut into it a little bit with their hooves. So cut in the ground means it's a little bit softer than hard. Okay,
only a couple are left here now. We're on to black type.
Yeah, big breeding term this. So if you have a mare that perhaps you want to send to the breeding circles at some point in its career, it's very good to get some black type into its resume. Black type being a race above listed class. If you can place in it, when you look at its form figures, that number will be in black, meaning black type.
Okay, very good. Number 29 is all weather.
Or whether, just another surface that horses do run on. Of course, there is racing 365 days a year, but it doesn't suit all types. You can't really go flat racing in the depths of winter without an all-weather track, which means they're running on an artificial surface like sort of tapeter and stuff like that. And it just means that racing can take place there all year round, so all weather.
Okay, and our penultimate piece of horse racing jargon is outsider of 3.
Old wives' tale this. So when you get a 3 run of race, the suggestion is always back the outsider of 3. Whenever the outsider of 3 in a 3-runner race wins, try saying that fast, you will end up with someone coming out with, well, you always back the outsider of 3 in a 3-runner race. It does happen, but only statistically as often as it should.
Okay, and Dean, last but not least, bar the rest, number 31.
Makes a lot of sense for that to be last, I would imagine. Again, when you're talking about the prices in a betting card, let's say a race has multiple runners, 16 plus. If you were going to start reading them all out, it's quite a long list. There is a point in the list where it becomes relevant to just say, do you know what, I've got to this 8-1 shot. That's number 7 in the betting. It's 10-1 bar the rest. And that means it's 10-1 or bigger every other horse I haven't mentioned.
Okay, very good. Well, Dean, that about does it for today's episode. Thank you very much for coming on. And I hope that your voice doesn't go after those fast and efficient explanations.
I will take a relative break before we go again.
A relative break. Very good. Okay, as always, Gamblecast is live on Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Simply search for us on your favorite platform if you're not already on it, and you'll find us there. Make sure to check out Gambling.com today for up-to-date horse racing trends and tips. We will be back next week with another edition of Gamblecast. Until then, goodbye.